Hi. So in this video, we're going to talk about some logistics for your daily spiritual practice, like how do I sit and how long do I practice for, stuff like that. But first, I'd like to say just a little bit about the goals for this class that I didn't get to clarify in an earlier video. And so what I'm really excited about for this class, and what I spoke about in the first video, is what I'm calling living from abiding love, which is really what I described in the first video, this state of, even amidst the stress of your life, emotional difficulties, all of these feelings and thoughts that come in, amidst all of that, living from a place of okayness, peace, and a sense of deep being that is always at least in the background. This is something that I've experienced and I've learned is available to everyone. But what I want to say is that if this is not your main goal for this class, that if you're taking this class mostly just to be in community with other spiritual practitioners or to learn things about spiritual practice, that is absolutely okay. Okay, you get to prioritize whatever you want to prioritize. For the purposes of these videos and for the class, I will be prioritizing helping us toward this state of abiding love. But that doesn't have to be your goal, and that's absolutely fine. Okay? Okay. So let's move on to just some of these common questions that people have about spiritual practice. And that all of this is an invitation. Okay? I'll make recommendations, I'll make invitations. And you, at the end of the day, get to decide what's right for you. Okay? You know already. You know in your heart what's right for you, and you get to listen to that. All right, so let's start with that. So first one is how often? Okay, how often should I do a spiritual practice? And my recommendation, my invitation is every day. And this doesn't have to be super rigid. Most people find that they miss a day or two, every week or something like that, or at least at the beginning. It's hard to do it every single day, and that's absolutely fine. You don't need to beat yourself up if you skip a day, but just to have the intention to practice every single day. And then if something gets in the way of that and it's really hard to, it's not happening for you, well, that's a part of you that we can just talk with and get to know better and bring some love to, and then that will help. Another thing that people ask is, how long should I practice? Is 5 minutes okay? How long? And this is absolutely up to you, that you again get to kind of listen to what feels right to you. But I recommend at least 20 minutes per day. And that, one of the aspects of spiritual practice is that it's like training your parts, okay? And in this way, it's like training a puppy or something. So we're training your parts to trust self. That's how we would say it in IFS. Okay, training your parts to trust this abiding love that's already here. And so if you think about training a puppy, okay, training any being, right, requires consistency and time. And less than 20 minutes is just not a lot of time to train your parts in this deep trusting of self, deep abiding trusting of self. And so I recommend at least 20 minutes. I really recommend 30 to 60 minutes per day. And you might say, what? That's way too much. I can never do, 30 minutes or even 60 minutes a day. Like, you know how busy I am? And I absolutely get that. We are all very busy people. And so if you absolutely cannot do that, that's okay. But the reason that I recommend 30 and even 60 minutes per day is, again, just the more time, the more likely it is that our parts are going to really learn to trust self, to trust this abiding love more quickly. And that this fundamental well-being research study shows and recommends 60 uninterrupted minutes, actually. That's their recommendation. because they say that something happens around the 45-minute mark of uninterrupted quiet practice that really helps to shift us into this place of abiding love. And if you really believe, and I absolutely believe with all of my being, that your practice is the most important thing to help you to realize this place of abiding love and how much that can change your life, it absolutely can, then, you might find that you can find 60 minutes in a day of uninterrupted time. And you'll have to make sacrifices. And that's absolutely your choice. So the next thing is sitting. Do I need to sit on the floor? Do I need to sit on a cushion? What's the deal here with sitting? And so, I would say sit in any way that's comfortable to you. Okay? If you want to sit on a chair or on the floor, on a cushion or on your bed, whatever is comfortable to you, whatever works. I wouldn't recommend lying down, okay, or even really reclining. It's just hard to be, we want to be alert and awake. But again, whatever makes sense to you, okay? And then where to practice. So the only invitation I have here is just to choose the same place each day. And so this helps parts to kind of get into the flow of the practice of then trusting this abiding self, abiding love. Okay? Same place each day. And this also doesn't have to be rigid, If that place doesn't work for one day or something, it's fine. It doesn't have to be that way. And so then when should I practice? And so most people, you get to choose when to practice. I would say you don't want to do it like 3 minutes here and then 3 minutes there and 3 minutes there. I mean, you can do that, but you really do want at least 20 minutes of sustained practice. Okay? If you have little chunks, if you have 5 minutes in the middle of your day, that's great too. But you also want to have at least a 20-minute chunk somewhere throughout the day. And so then when to have that your main, period of daily practice. Most people choose the first thing that when they wake up, or they choose in the evening once kind of all the daily activities have settled down. And that you get to choose which of those feels right to you, or you might do both. But one of the things, you can experiment with it. So if you, if you think, I'm going to try the evening because morning is hard for me and the scheduling of the morning is just tricky. But then you try evening practice and you just fall asleep every time, then you might want to see if you can make it work in the morning. So just kind of listen to your body and see what makes most sense to your body. And then one more thing about this is I just want to talk about walking. And so actually much of my practice is done walking. So every morning I wake up and I go for a walk, usually for 30 minutes. And I find that this is very helpful in just calming my parts, calming my body, helping to facilitate what I'll talk about in the next video, which is coming home, which is really the essential thing that we're looking for in our practice. And so a couple of tips if you want to try walking meditation, walking practice, that's great. A couple of tips for this, okay? One is that I invite you to have your intention for this walk to be only your practice, so that the intention is not exercise or to check out the neighborhood or to look at the nature. Those things are great, and if you want to do those later, that's beautiful. But that during your practice walk, your meditation walk, it should really just be focused on the practice. Okay? And so with this, I recommend walking slowly. Okay? Again, this walk is not for exercise, so I recommend walking slowly and looking down just a few feet ahead of you. Trying not to be, you'll have to look around every once in a while, but trying to mostly be looking down in front of you. And not, looking at the other people or whatever. And then I actually take my glasses off. I have the benefit that I can kind of blur out the rest of the world just by doing this. So I do that during my walk. And I can still see cars and stuff. I can still see the sidewalk. But everything becomes more blurry and actually helps me to focus more inside. So that's just some tips. Okay, that's all I have for that video. If I've missed any questions that you have, please email me, let me know. And that all of these recommendations are optional. You get to decide what works best for you. And so in the next video, we're going to talk really about the heart of spiritual practice, that no matter what method you use, and I'll talk about different methods to use in later videos, no matter what method you use, that the heart of spiritual practice is what I call coming home. And we'll talk about that next. Thanks.